Thanks for stopping by and lending me a few minutes of your valuable time. Today I want to talk about something you may not have heard about or may not have ever even thought to pick up and read. Recently, a certain guilty pleasure TV show and a certain web forum that won't be named here have convinced me to check out the newer Archie comic books, which was easy enough considering the company just rebooted the title back in 2015. And by the end of the first issue, I was just completely blown away by how beautiful the art is and how great the writing is. Like, I really didn't expect it. One of the things I love most about the new Archie books is how much heart goes into these stories. The book starts off with Betty and Archie on rocky terms, having just broken up. This is made even harder for both of them, considering the fact that they had both been best friends their whole childhood prior to dating each other. We're not explicitly told what happens or why they broke up, it's just referred to as the lipstick incident. And no one knows exactly what happened except for Archie and Betty. And the reader doesn't even know the full extent of what the lipstick incident is until several issues later. Without spoiling too much, Betty found herself growing at a pace that Archie couldn't quite keep up with. They had each fallen in love with the best friend they grew up with, not the person their best friend was growing into. These conflicts are sincere and relatable. No one's really the bad guy, and they're just two stupid kids who don't quite understand how to fully adult yet. And as a result, they ended up hurting each other out of ignorance, which culminates in a learning experience for both of them, all a part of growing up. Archie comics have always been a gateway to a world of fun, relatable, charming characters, from a timeless world where there's some humor to every misfortune. Riverdale is usually portrayed as your typical, wholesome 1950s-esque vision of an idealistic small-town America. But over time, our vision of an idealistic America has shifted and changed. So, in the new Archie comics, this new iteration of Riverdale and its citizens tend to be a lot more akin to Glee or Modern Family than Leave It to Beaver or the Brady Bunch. The new Archie comics present that same idealistic world in a new, modern light. The way the town, art style, and characters have changed reflects how our culture and our ideals have changed. One of the founders of Archie Comics, John Goldwater, once said that Archie's hometown of Riverdale has always been a safe world for everyone, and now that's truer than ever. Riverdale is incredibly inclusive, diverse, and transformative. One of the best examples that comes to mind is that despite the fact that Kevin Keller identifies as being gay, he's never relegated to being a gay best friend or a mid-2000s rom-com stereotype. He's portrayed as every bit as masculine and stereotypically male as Archie or Reggie. Only one time is his sexuality correlated with a stereotype, when Jughead asks for his help planning a party. But this is acknowledged and played off as a coincidence. Kevin isn't asked to help because he's gay, but because he just happens to be a genuinely great party planner. There's so much more to characters in this book than their race, gender, or sexuality. They all have individual personalities, underlying goals, and motivations that are so much more than stereotypical high school archetypes. This kind of updated characterization is something that Riverdale falls flat on its face at doing when it comes to characters like Kevin, but that's a rant for another day. Another thing the book likes to do is play with gender roles and societal expectations. If Archie tried to fix his car, it would definitely end up a lot worse than when he started. But lucky for him, his best ex-girlfriend Betty is an ace when it comes to auto repair. Whereas the old comics might portray Betty as an aspiring teacher or model, the new comics chose to give her a typically male-saturated blue-collar job as her career and hobby of choice instead. Another one of the things that makes this comic stand out when compared to other publishers is the art design and aesthetics of the comic. The poppy colors and clever usage of graphic design really bring these books to life. One of the things this book does better than any other book at the Big Two is panel layout. Take for example this page of the Lodges having a family dinner. Don't worry, all the context you need for the story is in the first few pages, despite the fact that this story takes place several issues in. The panel layout reinforces Mr. Lodge's position as the head patriarch and head of the house, with him being prominently placed in the middle of the three frames. The lines from Veronica's chair flow directly into Mr. Lodge's, perhaps a small suggestion that they're more similar than they care to admit. In just one single page, we're made very aware of the tone of the room. The rule of thirds is present and makes everything look and feel even. The design here is very symmetric. If this was your first issue of Archie, you would immediately know what the conflict was, without even having to read any of the books beforehand. Mr. Lodge and Veronica are arguing over Archie. There's a clear flow from panel to panel, reflecting the tension in the room by having the panels and speech bubbles overlap one another, perhaps shadowing the characters talking over one another. I love the flow of this next page. Notice how it starts with Reggie walking into a doorway that protrudes out of the panel, reflecting the larger-than-life nature of the Lodge estate, family, and business. And when the page ends, Veronica exits out that very same doorway, which is now facing the other way and overlapped by the panel of her father and Reggie, both trying to impose their own will and own desires onto Veronica without taking into account what Veronica's goals or desires are herself. The flow here keeps you interested and helps your eyes move from panel to panel more naturally. Interesting panel layout and design tend to be lost in the hustle and bustle of modern comics. DC puts out 52 books a month and is a large company. But Archie is a lot smaller and they have less books to manage, and as such they can focus more on their main books, putting more effort into the composition as opposed to shoving half-finished books out because of event tie-ins and crossovers, or deadlines, or just competition. While the book manages to evolve to match modern day standards, the cast of characters still remain faithful and true to their old school counterparts. Archie is still a goofball who always has the best intentions but somehow ends up incapable of achieving his goal or screwing it up entirely. Betty is trying to find out who she is, but she's insecure and struggling to find a way to express her individuality while still being true to herself. Jughead once lived a life of wealth and luxury, but now his parents struggle paycheck to paycheck. Having seen both sides of the economic spectrum, now Jughead is just trying to live a simpler, stress-free life, away from the hustle, bustle, and drama that everyone else in Riverdale seems to involve themselves in. And lastly, Veronica struggles to relate to others because of her own silver spoon upbringing. And though she often comes off as a bit snobbish, she usually has the best of intentions and a heart of gold, and she even tries to gain the acceptance of her peers by helping out her friends and the town in general. But those attempts often fall short as her father has a tendency of upsetting the townsfolk of Riverdale. It always ends up affecting Veronica and others' perceptions of her, regardless of the circumstances. The series tends to focus heavily on the situations these kids find themselves in. It shows us Riverdale's perception of those events, and how the repercussions of those events can affect the main characters. Mark Waid and Fiona Staples are the co-creators of the newest comic. Waid has a long history of writing some really great comic books, and I've been a fan of his for some time. Staples is a brilliant artist with an amazing eye for color and usage of space. Their styles blend together so well to create a cohesive, real-feeling world of realistic, charismatic, and engaging characters. The world of Riverdale feels so much more modern, realistic, and relatable than any other comic on the market right now, which is a stark contrast to the books that Archie was putting out at the beginning of the 2000s, which had felt stale and outdated for some time now. Another one of the creators responsible for the changes at Archie Comics is Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa. Before the 2015 reboot, the Archie comic books were in such a slump that they'd try anything to sell books. After the success of his Archie Glee crossover, Sacasa was given free reign to create whatever book he wanted with the Archie brand and cast of characters. And as such, he created Afterlife with Archie, a story about a zombie apocalypse coming to Riverdale told with an old-school horror aesthetic. This book was a resounding success, receiving acclaim from critics and fans alike, and even resulted in the creation of more Archie horror titles like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Vampironica, and Jughead the Hunger. This success led to Sacasa becoming the chief creative officer of Archie Comics. The fact that such a drastic shift from the normal was successful led to the decision to break from their timeless traditions and finally modernize the main line of comics for a new generation, resulting in some pretty amazing books that you should definitely make a point to check out. I plan on talking about Sabrina and the Archie horror titles in a video sometime in the near future, so make sure you subscribe to make sure you don't miss out. And after you do, leave a like on the video, and head down to your local comic book shop and pick up an issue or trade of Archie, Sabrina, or Afterlife. Once you're done reading it, be sure to let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I guarantee you won't regret it. These books are really great. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Au revoir.